Housing is getting way too expensive, so we're gonna deck out this tiny home, and since it's only 20 feet long by 8 feet wide, we're gonna have to get creative to make the small space work. We started by framing out 2 smaller walls that will separate the tiny home from the bathroom. Each wall that I'm framing out is gonna be 30 inches wide, leaving a 28-inch opening for the door. After putting it together, I raised it into place and screwed it into the tiny home. Now that the wall's all framed up, I picked up this Romex 14-2 and this electrical panel so I could start wiring up the tiny home. I started by marking 16 inches where all my receptacle boxes will go, and another line above it so I can drill all my holes to run all my wires. After drilling the holes, I went ahead and nailed on the receptacle boxes. I then started running the wire through all the holes and into the receptacle boxes. I ran the wire into the box and left some extra slack for when I install my outlets. And I installed one of these wire fasteners to every wire going in and out of a box. I ran 14 2 wires into the receptacles that won't pull a lot of power, and a thicker 10-2 wire for the induction cooktop. Now that the wires are ran into the receptacle boxes, it's time to install the breaker panel. This is a 100 amp main breaker panel with 24 slots, so it should be more than enough for this tiny home. After securing the panel to the studs, I broke away the metal ring openings and started drilling holes. And before running my wires into the panel, I installed these clamps to hold them into place. I then installed a piece of blocking underneath the panels that I can fasten all the wires to. I slid the wires into the panel and left a bunch of extra slack, then secured the wires to the blocking. After running all my wires into the box, I installed these metal wire protectors so no one screws into them by accident. But then just like that, all the receptacle boxes were installed. I got here this morning and got the scare of my life. I went to go put the camera on the tripod and there's a little freaking bee on top of it. So let's see if we can get this little freaking guy outside. Alright, so, oh, come on. Alright, so I got him on this piece of paper right here. Let's see if we can put him outside without getting stung. I'll leave him there for now. Before running all the wires for the lights, I need to drill a bunch of holes in the rafters so I can slide the wires through. And instead of getting up there and wasting a bunch of time measuring every single one, I'm gonna use this Fantic laser level that I'm gonna set up on this tripod right here. And it's gonna make a nice line up there, so it could save me a bunch of time and I know exactly where to drill. Whew. All right, so all the holes are drilled. It obviously leaves a crazy mess, but now that they're all drilled, we're gonna go ahead and run our wire. After running all the wires for the lights, I installed the box that will hold all the switches, then started to connect my 50 amp service wire to the breaker panel. I've been doing electrical for quite some time, but I'm still not a professional electrician. But if you're gonna do electrical on your own, I recommend you to reach out to your local electrician if you don't want to end up like this guy. After installing all my 6-gauge cables, I went ahead and installed the bus bar for all my ground wires. I then continued on to connect all my home runs to all my circuit breakers and kept it nice and organized to make sure it looks nice and meets code. Once I finished installing all my breakers, I had to install my 50 amp service plug to the outside of the tiny home. This is how the entire tiny home will have electricity, which will plug in once we move it to the land that we plan to park it on. After installing the 50 amp service connection, I installed these protectors to the panel. Then just like that, all the wiring was all finished up. Alright, so now that the wiring's all finished up, we picked up this PEX right here so we can run all the plumbing inside of all the walls. I started by drilling a bunch of 3/4 inch holes that all my PEX can run through. This was a pain in the ass to do and left a crazy mess, But after 45 minutes of drilling, I ran the PEX through all the holes. I got all these materials from plumbingcell.com. It's a lot faster to just go online and get it from them than to go to your local hardware store and pick out all these individual pieces to make your plumbing system work. And it ends up being cheaper at the end. This took me years to figure out, and believe me, if you plan on doing your own plumbing project, just go to plumbingcell.com. It's going to save you a bunch of time and a ton of money. I'll link their website in the description below, as well as all the tools that I use in this project. So now that we have all the PEX ran inside of all the walls, we're going to install these little metal things right on the outside of the studs, just so nobody accidentally screws into any of the PEX. We got all the wire protectors installed onto all the studs. Now we're going to install these pool noodle thingies to insulate all the PEX. We have all of our electrical installed and all the plumbing finished up. Now we're going to install this R13 insulation right here in between all the studs. This insulation is made out of fiberglass, so I'm going to go ahead and put on a mask and some gloves because this stuff gets you super itchy, and I don't want to be itchy. Insulation is coming together really nicely, and it has these little flaps right here where we can staple them onto the stud, but since some of the studs are closer together and it doesn't fit, we're gonna have to cut the insulation to size, and we won't have a spot to staple it on, but it should still be okay. Now that the walls are insulated, I'm on my way to Lowe's to pick up a bunch of shiplap so I can hopefully start closing off some of these walls, so then I can go ahead and install cabinets and hopefully finish up this tiny home. Just got here to Lowe's, and a little trick that I do on big orders is I order everything online. That way I don't need to go inside of the store and pick everything out, because that takes a long time to do, and it's a lot easier when they load it up for you. We got the shiplap. Now we're gonna unload it off the truck, cut it to size so we can start covering up some of these walls. Finished installing all the shiplap, but we don't want the entire tiny home to be pure shiplap. So on the living room, we're gonna go ahead and make a nice accent wall just to kind of split things up. I know it's black, but trust the process. Picked up these pine slats that we're gonna nail onto this wall like this, and we're gonna spread them out by about 1 inch a piece to make a nice slatted wall, giving this tiny home a much more luxurious feel. A much more luxury feel. I don't know, whatever, let's go. Before installing the slats, I cut them in half to make them skinnier to save on weight and money. Then I took my time staining them before installing them. I secured them to the wall using 18 gauge finish nails and spaced them out by 1.5 inches. So we got the slatted wall all finished up. Now we're going to install this trim right here around all the windows.
This wall right here is going to be the kitchen wall where the sink and the stove is going to go, and we want to tile the entire thing, so we cut out these pieces of hardy board that we're going to screw onto the wall so the tile can stick properly to the hardy board. Before installing the kitchen cabinets, we're going to tile this wall just to make things a little easier so the cabinets aren't in the way.
I started off by putting a thin layer of tile adhesive on the corner and adding this trim piece. I then started laying the tiles one by one, making sure they're plumb and square so everything looks nice and symmetrical as I go up the wall. And to cut the tile, I used this manual tile cutter because it's cheap and it works great. But I then repeated the same process over and over until I got to the top.
Got 4.5 rows all finished up and it's looking pretty damn good. I love the way it looks with the wall over there. Now we have a couple more rows to do. We're trying to keep them nice and straight so everything looks nice and symmetrical, but we're gonna go all the way up to the ceiling. Then we'll let it dry for a day so then we can go ahead and grout. Alright, so all the walls are installed and I now need to start building stairs on this wall right here so we can get up into the loft. And I've never done this before, so I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible. So what I'm doing now is cutting out these pieces of this maple plywood because I'm going to be building the cabinet that will hold the fridge and the microwave. And I need to make these cuts as nice as possible, so I'm using my track saw to do it. And this is going to be the only custom cabinet in the whole entire build, so I got to make it match the other ones, which is going to be a little bit difficult, but I think we can manage to do it. So I got all my pieces cut out. Now I'm going to use this pocket hole jig to drill a bunch of pocket holes in all the pieces so I can screw them together.
After drilling all the pocket holes, we glued on some edge band to cover up all the exposed plywood edges.
Building cabinets can be really difficult, which is why I'm a member to Woodworkers Guild of America. It's a website that teaches you how to build cabinets and a bunch of other different woodworking projects, and they're the sponsor to today's video. When you become a member, you'll have access to premium detailed step-by-step videos on how to complete a project.
These premium videos teach you step-by-step on how to use specific tools, shop safety, how to build tables, build furniture, and a bunch of other stuff.
If you're doing any woodworking projects at home or plan to, check out the website, become a member. It's no BS. I guarantee you'll become a much better woodworker. They gave me a discounted link that I'm going to link down in the description below, and the first 1,000 people to sign up will have an entire year's worth of membership for only $1.49. The cabinet for the fridge and the microwave is coming out really nice, but I just realized that the water heater goes underneath the stairs, and if I install the stairs first, I'm not going to have any room to work on the water heater, so I'm going to install it first, then I'll finish up the stairs.
I started by installing the 20 amp receptacle that the water heater will plug into, then drilled a hole for my freshwater inlet and got it installed. I then went to town connecting all the PEX fittings that I got from plumbingcell.com, which will connect straight to the 10-gallon water heater that we picked up. I know the water heater's small, but this is a tiny home and we gotta work with the space that we have.
Got the water heater installed and it looks pretty good. Now that that's finished up, I'm gonna go ahead and finish building out the stairs so we can finally get into the loft.
Earlier in the video, I built this platform out of 2x4s that'll support the bottom part of my stairs. I wrapped it in plywood so it looks nice and also give it some extra support, then drilled a bunch of pocket holes into it so I can screw in the steps.
So I got my steps cut out and installed. We're gonna go ahead and put a piano hinge right here so this can open and close, allowing there to be storage inside of here just to maximize the space.
Before installing the piano hinge, I figured I'd finish up the stairs because I still need to stain everything, and that makes the most sense to me. I cut out this piece of butcher block because I'm going to be installing a cabinet underneath the stairs, and this will work as a step. I then put them in their place to make sure they fit properly, then started working on my stair stringers.
Out these pieces of plywood that will work as my stair stringers, but before I install them, I'm gonna reinforce them with some 2x4s.
Coming up with the design of these stairs was really difficult. There was just a lot of measuring involved, and I'm not a stair expert, so it was just hard to come up with something that would look nice. And 2 solid days of planning, I finally came up with this contraption, and I'm honestly kind of proud of it. It basically just sits on top of the countertop and goes onto the fridge cabinet that I built earlier, which should make it nice and easy to climb up into the loft.
Stairs are finished up and they're looking really good. Now we're gonna grout the tiled wall that we installed earlier so we can install the cabinets.
I started by mixing some of this darker colored grout in a 5-gallon bucket till it was the consistency of something like peanut butter. I then brought it into the tiny home and used one of these soft grout floats to put it in between all the cracks. It took me about an hour and a half to do from start to finish, and the grout ran me about $30, so it wasn't too bad.
So I just finished up the grout and I have the state inspector here. Let's see what she thinks.
Approved. State inspection.
After passing that rough inspection, we brought the cabinets into the tiny home and got them installed. For the countertops, we picked up some of this butcher block and we put it into place temporarily so we can find out where the sink is gonna go.
Alright, so I used this stencil that the sink came with to trace out onto this butcher block countertop. Now I'm gonna bring it out and cut it and hope that I don't mess this thing up. So I'm using this fine finish blade to cut it out and I'm honestly kind of nervous. Now I'm gonna use this jigsaw with this fine cutting blade to cut out all the corners.
After I cut out the sink, I stained the entire countertop, then realized that I forgot to cut the hole for the induction cooktop, so then I went ahead and did that. After cutting the hole, I dry fit the induction cooktop to make sure it fits properly. Then I applied some of this Minwax urethane to help keep the countertops protected, and I let them sit overnight before installing them.
We took the tops off of all the stairs so we could paint everything, and Hope chose this nice blue color right here to give everything a pop, so let's see how it turns out.
After an entire day of staining the countertops and painting, we let everything dry for the rest of the night so it can cure properly.
Last night we stained and lacquered the steps and they look so freaking nice. Look at this. It has a nice sheen to it. Now we're gonna get them installed so then we can move on to the kitchen. So we got the kitchen finished up and all the stairs installed. Now we're gonna install the ceiling underneath the loft area.
We're only installing 1/4-inch plywood on the ceiling underneath the loft, just to help reduce the amount of weight that this trailer is gonna hold. And at the end of the day, the ceiling's only gonna hold a couple of puck lights, so 1/4-inch plywood should do.
that the ceiling's all finished up, I'm gonna go ahead and fill all the cracks and holes with this caulk. So now that the ceiling underneath the loft is all finished up, we're on our way to the store right now to pick up some more wood so we can finish the rest of the ceiling. Got a bunch of these tongue and groove boards. Now we're gonna unload them, stain them, so we can install them onto the ceiling.
Before we installed the ceiling, we had to stain it, so Hope went to town staining all the boards while I installed the insulation.
I got all the insulation installed. Now I'm gonna go ahead and start installing all the boards.
We cut the boards to size and used 18 gauge finish nails to secure them onto the roof, and we put a decent amount of them to make sure they don't fall off over time, and I really don't think they will because I think I put like 12 in each board.
So this insulation is made to go on studs that are 16 inches on center, and since these are 24 on center, it's a little bit bigger. So instead of putting them like this, we're just flipping them sideways so they fit properly.
Installing this insulation was backbreaking to say the least, but if you notice we're not installing the ceiling in the bathroom, that's because we're going to be installing the entire bathroom in a different video because we're already over a month into this build and I need to post a video and take a small break.
I'm gonna use this 6-inch hole saw to cut a hole in this board because that's where my lights are gonna go. We got the boards installed onto the ceiling. Now it's time to install these 6-inch puck lights. They come with individual ballast and they have 650 lumens, which should be plenty to light up this tiny home.
To install them, it's super easy. You just remove the wires, pop this tab, then slide the main wire into the box. Then just connect the black wire to the black wire, the white to the white, and the ground to the ground, and that's it. To close up the box, just neatly tuck the wires back into it, close it, then slip it into the roof, and it also comes with this little ballast right here that you can adjust the different light temperatures. I set mine to medium, which is kind of the perfect medium between super bright and amber, but I then repeated the same process over and over until all the lights were installed. After installing the lights, I capped off the ridge beam with another piece of wood that I stained, and man oh man am I in love with the way that this thing is turning out. But then just like that, the ceiling was all finished up.
We finally got the ceiling installed and now it's officially time to install the floor. In order to find out the color, we picked up these samples from Floret, which is a bunch of different planks, and they basically send it to your house so you can figure out what color floor you want. So these are the colors right here that they sent us, and we ended up going with this color right here. It's called Brenwick, and the reason we chose it is because it's not too light, but it's also not too dark. We wanted it to match the countertops and the ceiling a little bit. So let's get it installed and see how it looks.
If you guys have watched my videos in the past, you know that I'm super picky with the type of flooring I choose to install into the tiny homes that I build. I've tried a bunch of different brands and they always snap when I try and clip them together, so that's the reason why I always spend the extra money to get my floors from Floret. They're made out of LVP, which makes them super durable, especially in high traffic areas, so that's another reason why I choose to install them into my tiny homes. And if you notice I'm not using an underlayment, that's because these floors already come with the high quality one built in.
Guys, look at this intricate piece. It took me like 30 minutes to figure out the measurements and cut it out. Let's see if it fits.
We also decided to install the same flooring in the loft instead of carpet, just because over time carpets get smelly and people spill stuff on them. So we figured just install flooring since it's 100% waterproof and it'll just last a lot longer. But I'm gonna put a 50% off link in the description below so you can get yourself a sample kit.
So we finally got the floor finished up and it looks freaking beautiful. Now we're gonna install all the baseboards, finish painting, do a bunch of finishing touches, then install the refrigerator and try to finish this project up. So everything's coming along really well, but one thing that I've been procrastinating is this water heater / under the stairs area. So I cut out a bunch of pieces of wood to try and cover it up. So now I'm gonna install them and let's see how it comes out.
I added a couple extra pieces of blocking to be able to hold up my countertop. And since I had a couple extra pieces of 1x2s, I cut them out, painted them white, and put them onto this cabinet face to give it a nice slattered look. I then went ahead and installed it, and the reason I'm not putting hinges is because I don't want people opening this thing up and filling it up with storage and somehow ruining the water heater.
So after a couple of hours, it actually looks pretty damn good. I'm really happy at the way it turned out. We added an extra countertop and then added some slats that we painted white. We screwed it in, but it's removable just in case anybody needs to work on the water heater. This top part is also removable, so you'll have full access to it if it needs to be maintenance or anything like that. But now that that's all finished up, we're gonna install the refrigerator, the microwave, and do some final touches so we can finally finish this project up. To help keep this tiny home safe, we decided to pick up one of these Sitterwell smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. And the reason we chose this instead of a bunch of other brands is because it says less cooking nuisance on it. And since this is a tiny home, obviously if you cook some food, it's gonna get really smoky in here and we don't want the fire alarm going off every 10 minutes every time somebody cooks. So that made a lot more sense to us. So let's get it installed.
Step 1, put the batteries in.
Monoxide. Attention, monoxyde de carbone.
Fridge and a microwave installed, and I just realized that the fridge is a little bit of a different style than the microwave, so I may end up changing the microwave in the future, but for now I love the way that it looks. We're almost done. Now we're gonna install some LEDs, and then after that we'll clean up and show you guys some B-roll.
For the LEDs, we just chose regular stick-on LEDs that are dimmable. Then we went to town doing final touches like installing the drawer pulls, cleaning up, and even installing a floating shelf in the kitchen. But after over a month of work, the entire interior of the tiny home was all finished up. The interior part of this build took us just over a month to complete, and the filming and editing process added a ton of work to the project, but after a countless amount of hours, we were finally able to get this video out to you guys before Christmas. In the next video, we're going to be building out the entire bathroom from start to finish, but with that being said, click subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.